If you have $1 million and you're at least 55, you might be able to retire sooner than you think. I've worked with hundreds of clients in similar situations and learned that for most people, the real problem isn't just a financial one. It's the psychological traps keeping you chained to a job that you might not even enjoy anymore. And today, I'll walk you through the 3 biggest mental barriers that keep financially ready people from retiring. And most importantly, the one solution framework that can dismantle every single one of them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why having $1 million at 55 or older likely means you can retire sooner rather than later. Which psychological barriers could be sabotaging your decision-making, and the specific steps that you can take to retire with confidence so you can start enjoying the years that you've already earned. Let's get started. Here's a retirement paradox. The people that are most financially ready to retire are often the last ones to actually do it. I had a client in this same exact situation, and they asked me the other day if what he read online was actually real. He did some research before our first meeting and was shocked to find out that his $1 million he had saved at age 55 could generate him about $66,000 a year in income for the rest of his life. And if you do the math, that's about $5,550 per month for the rest of your life. Now, let me be clear, I'm not saying that you should do what he found online. In fact, you should absolutely not put all of your money into any form of an immediate annuity, but he wanted to understand what was possible with what he had. Now, to take that a step further, when you add in Social Security benefits, which average to about $2,000 per retired person per month, you're looking at more than $7,500 in guaranteed annual retirement income once all of those levers are flipped on in that example. Now, clearly, that's not my recommendation, but said, well, why would I wait? And maybe the better question is, why do so many people wait? Because despite having the financial means to do so, most millionaires still work until 65, 67, or even 70. They have the money, they have the means, but they can't make that mental leap to retirement, so they trade away their most active, healthy retirement years for security that they already have. In fact, people get so worried about leaving their kids more money that I've even seen them miss out on actually spending time with them and instead choose years of stress, unnecessary work, and most importantly, not enjoying the retirement that they've worked so hard to earn. Now, this retirement paradox goes beyond just money. Every extra year you work is a year you could spend doing the things that actually give you genuine joy. People miss watching their grandchildren grow up, postpone those dream trips until arthritis makes walking difficult, and sacrifice decades of quality time with their spouse because they just can't break free from work, despite being financially ready to do so. So the psychological barriers to retirement tend to strengthen over time, making that transition even harder. What starts with just, I'll work one more year, can quickly become a 10-year-long delay that people end up deeply regretting in hindsight. Now, the irony of that is heartbreaking. People spend their entire careers building wealth for retirement, only to be too afraid to actually retire once they reach that goal. This retirement paradox keeps many financially ready people working unnecessarily. But the scarcity mindset trap explains why the saving habit becomes so hard to break. When you show people the math, something interesting happens. They nod, acknowledge the numbers are solid, then immediately start listing out reasons why it may not be enough. What about healthcare costs? What if I live to 95? And what about inflation? These aren't irrational fears. They're logical concerns, and they should be planned for. However, they follow the same mental patterns that help people build their wealth in the first place. And after decades of being frugal and saving, these habits often become so deeply ingrained that they actually become part of someone's identity. And it's a conversation I have all the time. That transition from accumulation to decumulation requires an entire psychological shift that most people just aren't prepared for. And it's not surprising. For 30 or 40 years, you've been programmed to save, and save some more. And now suddenly you're supposed to spend? For a lot of people, this triggers guilt, anxiety, and fear, regardless of their actual financial security. It's not uncommon to see people with $2 million in retirement accounts agonize over a $20 tip at dinner. That scarcity mindset runs so deep in people that spending in retirement often feels wrong, even when you have more than enough money to do so. So the cycle starts. People continue working, not because they need more money, but because spending the money they have just feels too uncomfortable. They abandon retirement spending plans because of their psychological uncertainty. And the result is a massive disconnect between having retirement wealth and actually experiencing its benefits. I've even had someone tell me that they felt guilty taking a vacation, even though in reality, they could take a vacation every few months for the rest of their life and still be more than okay. I've also seen clients drive across the country instead of flying just to save a few bucks, even though it costs them a few extra days with their grandkids. That scarcity mindset creates significant psychological barriers, but the fear of the unknown represents an even more fundamental challenge to retirement action. Most people don't realize this, but retirement isn't just a financial decision. It's a complete life redesign that many are just completely unprepared for. Your work doesn't just provide income. For many people, it provides structure, purpose, identity, and yes, even social connection. When you retire, all that can disappear overnight. Think about it. If I were to ask you, what do you do? Let me guess what you'd say. Probably your job title. In fact, you've probably answered it that way for decades. But who are you without that? Many of the successful professionals that I've worked with have wrapped their identities so tightly around their career that retirement feels like losing themselves completely. And if you don't know what you're retiring into, that lack of a clear vision for what life looks like in retirement makes continuing to work seem safer than stepping into the unknown. This identity uncertainty creates retirement paralysis. People could pull the retirement ripcord at any point, but they're stuck. I've worked with many VPs who've earned several $100,000 annually, could easily afford to retire in their 50s. But when I ask them what they'll do with their time in retirement, they tell me they have no idea. Without meetings, deadlines, and quarterly targets, a lot of successful professionals struggle to just picture what their days would even look like. So they stay trapped in their jobs that, well, they've outgrown. Even had someone tell me, hey, even if I hate my job, at least I know what to expect. Retirement, on the other hand, is a blank slate, and for many people, that can feel even more terrifying. It's no surprise that without a clear vision of retirement life, financial readiness becomes meaningless. You might have more than enough saved for retirement, but if you can't picture how you'll actually spend your time, that financial security doesn't give you any emotional confidence to retire in the first place. So what many people do? They kick the can down the road. But here's the thing. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. Your identity becomes more and more entrenched in your career. Your social connections stay limited to work, and often your ability to see alternative paths shrinks even more. That's why so many people who could have retired in their 50s are still working well into their 70s. Not because they need the money, but because they've lost the ability to see any other way to live. And that's how many people end up in their 70s, wishing you had retired when your health was better. You could spend more time and energy doing the things that you want with the people that you love. So now that you understand these retirement psychological traps, book a call using the link in the description, and I'll be happy to analyze your situation to determine if you're ready to retire today, no matter what your exact situation is. Many pre-retirees feel like they have to keep building wealth to leave a larger inheritance to their kids. But this focus on packing every dollar into your legacy usually comes at the cost of quality time with family and really the very people that you're working to leave this money behind to. I've regularly met with clients who already made way more than enough money to retire comfortably, but they keep working to build a larger estate. They've bought into this belief that leaving more money equals being a better parent or a better grandparent. Meanwhile, they're missing family dinners, grandchildren's sporting events, and those precious moments that money can't replace. The irony here is that they're creating a legacy of work rather than a legacy of presence and relationships. In fact, many of their adult children would much rather have quality time with their parents than a larger inheritance, but many people just don't realize this until it's too late. This shows up in family discussions where adult children will tell their parents, Dad, look, we don't need your money, we just need you. So many parents are working to leave money to children who are already successful professionals earning six figures themselves. They're sacrificing their present-day relationships for inheritance money that their kids don't need or really won't want. Grandchildren especially benefit far more from an active grandparent relationship than future money. A grandparent who's present at recitals, graduations, and everyday moments creates memories that last a lifetime. But More often than not, a grandparent who's still working at 65, 68, or into their 70s to make another dollar can't get those moments back. And having grown up, spending a lot of time with my grandparents, I have so many memories that are absolutely priceless, and I wouldn't trade those for the world. But for the people that delay, this often creates a legacy gap between intentions and actual family impact and memories. The parent thinks that they're being responsible and generous by continuing to work, while the family just wants them to be present and actually retire already. And that costs everyone time together. See, a lot of people get confused about what they actually want to leave behind when they're gone. They think they need to have this perfect plan figured out, but then they stress themselves out trying to check all of these boxes that don't really even matter to them. What helps is just getting clear on what actually makes you feel secure, and I'm about to show you how to do exactly that. If you have $1 million and you're 55 or older, you likely don't need more money to just retire confidently, but you do need a plan that addresses both your bank account and your psychology. The key is implementing a withdrawal strategy that allows you to spend within reason, but also spend confidently. You'll want to establish clear spending permissions with defined guilt-free categories. This means pre-approving certain types of spending, things like travel, hobbies, family experiences, so you don't have to wrestle with guilt every time that you make a purchase or spend money on one of those things. The other piece is developing a structured retirement routine and purpose that creates your identity beyond work. For many people, this can look a lot of different ways. It might involve volunteering, consulting, creative projects, or time with your family. The goal is to replace that structure that work previously provided with retirement activities that also give you purpose. The people that I've seen that have taken this approach transform the retirement from just a financial milestone into a fulfilling stage of life. Instead of just having enough money not to work anymore, you have enough money and a clear plan for how to spend your time and your money meaningfully. And there's two ways that creating the security structure builds more confidence to be able to retire early. First, clear spending guidelines overcome the scarcity mindset that prevents you from enjoying your retirement. When you've pre-approved for certain categories of spending, you can make purchases without the guilt or anxiety that often will come with that. For many people, you're not constantly second-guessing whether you can afford something. You know that you can because you've planned for it. Second, purpose planning addresses the identity concerns that keep so many people working when they no longer have to. When you have meaningful activities and goals for retirement, it doesn't feel like stepping into a void. It feels like stepping into the next phase of a well-planned life. For the most successful retirees that I work with, this approach transforms retirement from something you're afraid of into something that you're excited about. Instead of wondering, can I afford to retire? You start asking, why haven't I retired yet? Now that you've seen why people with $1 million at 55 or older still aren't retired, let's look at how you can actually implement this advice into your own retirement plan. Here's the exact blueprint that my clients use to go from financially ready to actually retired. And it's a blueprint that works even if you're terrified of pulling that retirement ripcord yourself. First, you want to start with a retirement readiness assessment that goes beyond the numbers to evaluate how psychologically prepared you actually are. You want to ask yourself a few questions. Things like, can I describe exactly what I want my typical Tuesday to look like in retirement? Do I have at least 3 meaningful activities that could replace the purpose that my job has previously provided? And can I spend $500 on something fun without feeling guilty? Then create a detailed 90-day retirement transition plan. Now, this is going to help you bridge the gap between your work identity and your retirement purpose. If you're like me, you're big on routines. So you want to plan your first 3 months of your retirement day by day. What time will you wake up? What will you do? How will you stay socially connected? This is going to help eliminate the fear of the unknown by giving you a concrete vision for what retirement is and what you're stepping into next. Now, when you do this, you transform your retirement from an unknown into a clear path. Now you're not just leaving work, you're moving towards something specific and, most importantly, something appealing. And finally, here's how to ensure your retirement plan succeeds despite these psychological barriers. Because remember, those barriers actually get stronger over time. Making retirement harder at 60 than it was at 55, and even harder still at 65. First, schedule regular retirement rehearsal periods. Yes, please do this. This can look like taking an extended vacation or sabbatical to try out retirement. This makes you more comfortable with the retirement lifestyle that you'll be entering into before you make that permanent transition. Second, develop clear spending permissions and guidelines that will help you overcome that scarcity mindset. Write down exactly what you're allowed to spend on various categories. Again, things like travel, dining, hobbies, gifts, etc. Having this in writing will help you eliminate that psychological stress of these spending decisions. Third, you'll want to create a legacy experience rather than just what leaving money behind looks like. In fact, I had a client tell me the other day they rather give with their warm hand than their cold hand. For many people, this aligns inheritance planning with true family values. Instead of working longer to leave more money, focus on creating memories and relationships that will be remembered long after you're gone. This approach creates retirement readiness that makes sure you're not just financially able to retire, but that you're emotionally and psychologically prepared for that transition. So if you're tired of being financially ready, but psychologically stuck, I could do a specific assessment that determines exactly which barriers are holding you back and, most importantly, how to overcome them. If this video resonated with you and you'd like to learn more, click the link in the description to book a call, and I'd be happy to show you when you can actually retire. I'm Kyle Kuyat. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.